Cipher enlists the help of Jakob, Dom's younger brother, to take revenge on Dom and his team. Welcome to my channel. My name is Justin. Here we focus on your favorite content from streaming services and in theaters. If you guys love to watch movies and shows like I do, you guys are in the right spot. Alright, so today we're talking about F9, the Fast Saga. I decided that this video is just going to be spoiler filled. So if you have not seen F9, the Fast Saga, go check that film out and come back and share your thoughts on that movie with me. So this movie. Listen, I am a huge fan of the Fast and the Furious franchise. Ever since the first one, when I saw it at a drive-in and getting Too Fast, Too Furious, the movie, the soundtrack, car models, coats for my birthday, I've fell in love with this franchise. This will be one franchise. This James Bond, those are a couple franchises to me. No matter how terrible they will be, I will always stand by it. I will always go and see it. I will always find something to appreciate about a new entry. And F9, the Fast Saga, sees that Dom has a younger brother named Jakob, played by John Cena. And I've heard some things about this movie. And let's say this movie is overwhelming. It is a cluster mess of a film. Was I entertained? Yeah, I was. I found a lot of enjoyment in this film, but it is quite messy. And when I think about it, I think that a lot of it has to contribute to the writing. Too Fast, Too Furious, all the way to The Fate of the Furious was written by Chris Morgan. And this film was not written by Chris Morgan, and you can tell. Right from the beginning of the film, when we have Dom, Letty, and Dom's son, Brian, at their house, they're living a secluded life, and Tej and Roman pull up, and Dom doesn't know who it is, so he pulls a gun out on them and says that nobody sent them a message, that his plane was gone down, Cipher is back, and he sees that Jakob is involved in that. We have this rescue mission that sees Tej, Roman, Ramsey, Letty, and Dom all go on this rescue mission to find Mr. Nobody, played by Kurt Russell. It feels so small. The five of them together, it seems like a side movie, like a side quest, because we're so used to having Deckard Shaw and Hobbs and Han and Giselle and all the other characters. You know, some are dead, some are thought to be dead, but the movies always seem to have a big group of characters. When seeing just five of them together, it seemed a little bit off. And I hate to say it, because from Fast 5 on, not my favorite character. Luke Hobbs, his presence is missing. I think that The Rock created this own character, and with him not in this film, it's definitely missing. I think this movie would have been something different if Luke Hobbs or even Deckard Shaw was in it, because those two characters are huge now in the Fast and Furious franchise. Even having the spin-off, I think would have contributed a lot to this movie. So anyways, they go try to find Mr. Nobody, and Jacob's there, and it leads to one of the first big action scenes of the movie. We see in the trailer where he latches part of the bridge and swoops around to the other side on the mountain there. I can't do this. It's so over the top, so unbelievable. And even Letty says, well, that's something new. You know, I laugh when watching the moments like that. And ever since, really, I think like Fast 5, they became bigger. And they've had these really big action scenes. And they try to do it over and over again and try to just make something bigger. But after that one action scene, and we learn that Cipher is involved and Jacob's there, the movie just becomes a mess, and it's overwhelming, and there's just so much going on, so many different side stories, because everybody's kind of doing their own thing, trying to find this device that Jakob is after. It has two parts to it and needs a key. It can control anything like a computer. They need to send it into space, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But we see that Han is possibly still alive. So Letty and Mia go on this trip to Tokyo to try to find Han. And then we have Dom, who goes to talk to Queenie, played by Helen Mirren. And then we also have Tej and Roman, who go need a car. And they go see the characters from Tokyo Drift, Bow Wow and Lucas Black. And I would say that this is probably the scene I absolutely hate the most, because I do like those characters. I just recently watched Tokyo Drift, and I found, some more things I appreciate about that movie. But how do you get the characters going from drifting in Tokyo Drift to now building rockets and trying to race airplanes? The characters do not feel like themselves. It feels like they are just completely different. And it would make sense if they were in the previous movies and we've seen some kind of interest in that and was kind of building up. It's easily probably one of the weakest part of the movies. One of the scenes that I absolutely would have got rid of. We don't need Bow Wow. We don't need Lucas Black. We don't need all of that. That is probably the worst part of the movie for me. But we have all these different side stories going on, and none of them it's really even interesting. Even the return of Han, I thought was very overwhelming, and something the movie made me thought that as much as I do like Han as a character, and we see that everybody's just so happy that he's back in this movie, I think they should have just left him dead. I think that would just been fine. But they have to go into this backstory that he was approached by Mr. Nobody, of all people, because Mr. Nobody worked with Giselle, and they saw that Giselle and Han were in love. So he went to approach Han, and Han went and stole the device that Jakob was after. And then there was this young girl that he protected, and now she's with him. And then Deckard Shaw was a rogue agent. And then Mr. Nobody and Han faked Han's death and kept him dead. I don't even know. Just keep him dead. As much as, like I said, I liked the character, it was a really corny storyline and just felt really pointless. And Han was pretty cool in the movie. And I like that the certain scenes that he was working with some of the characters that he hasn't really worked with before. And some good chemistry with that. I thought it was nice to see Han. He had a haircut. He looked pretty good. But I think just the storyline was probably one of the weakest parts for him within this film. We also have some pretty big action scenes. Like I said, the one in the beginning of them swinging across the opening there. We also see this magnetic truck, and they're able to control it. There's some funny sequences in here where Ramsey admits that she doesn't know how to drive, and I think back, okay, Furious 7, The Fate of the Furious, we never saw her driving a car, and so makes sense now. But pretty funny watching her do all that, and there's some pretty big action scenes within there. And then we see the big truck tip over, and then we also see them go to space. I don't think I'm ready to talk about space yet. Let's talk about something else first. Another thing I think worked within this movie, and it added a lot of information about Dom and his father. The guy that he went to jail for when he was hitting him with the wrench, almost beat him to death with it. We get a lot of flashbacks. We meet Jack Toretto, Dom and Jakob's father, and him racing, and he dies in the beginning of the film. And you're wondering what's the conflict between Jakob and Dom, because it's not really explored in the first few minutes of that flashback. So you're wondering okay, what happened? And then they have another flashback, and we see that Jakob tries to act like a tough guy, and people call Jakob the weaker brother of the two. And so he tries to act all tough and everything, and that's when Dom comes in, beats the guy with the wrench, goes to jail. Then they end it there. Okay, what's the conflict still? Why do they hate each other? Why are they trying to kill each other? And then he goes to jail, and then he meets Santos and Leo, and they talk about how cars can explode. And then something switches with Dom and realizes that, and Jakob was the last person to touch his father's car. So Dom says, "Oh, you killed our father." After he gets out of prison, they race. They have this bet, and it leads to Jakob driving away, and because he lost the race. So the reason why they hate each other is because Jakob was the one that tampered with the car and led to Jack's death. I think the two actors that played a younger Dom and younger Jakob, they look pretty good, I do gotta say. But I think that the young guy who played a younger Dom covered all of those mannerisms and the things we know about Dominic Toretto pretty well. But then we learned further down the road that Jack Toretto was in a lot of debt and that he wanted to throw the race. And Jakob knew about it, but never wanted to tell Dom. And it was a way for him to kind of right some wrongs. And then, I don't know, is it going to lead to some happy moments? Because Dom now realizes things about Jakob. And we see, a moment at the end. I can't do a spoiler review where I'm just going to talk about every single scene because it's a pretty lengthy film. But towards the end of the film, the people that Jakob is working with to get these two devices to control a lot of things turns on him at the end, because Cipher now is the one that's working with him. Cipher has some pretty interesting jokes in here about Star Wars, and it's just weird. And she's got a weird haircut. But Cipher, Charlize Theron, is now working with this person to control, so Jacob's kind of left alone. Where do you think it's going to go? Now that Jakob and Dom are working together and they forgive each other. There's a pretty good reference to the first movie. He said that... There's a pretty good reference to the first movie with Brian and how Brian gave Dom a second chance and let Dom go. That's essentially what he did to Jakob. And we see Jakob drive away, gave me a hug, and goes a separate way. We'll see him again probably. It's John Cena. We had The Rock for so many movies. But I like that. I like that they kind of ended on a high note and they were willing to work together in the next film, because it's all about family. This is what the movies are about, family and loyalty and all of that. So I'm curious to what they're going to do with that. So in order for them to save everything, there's like this sense of urgency, and Tej and Roman go to space. There was rumors about it before the trailers. I was like, please don't do that. Please don't. They did it. It just feels so weird. Like, if you watch the first movie, how subtle that film is, compared to F9, and watch that, if you would have told me back in the early 2000s that, hey, you're going to watch F9 in 2021 and they're going to go to space, I wouldn't believe you. They do. And, it's supposed to feel like, oh my God, they're in space. It's crazy. It just felt so weird. And I think leading the pack was Lucas Black, flying the spacecraft. And it was like, it just doesn't make any damn sense. Why is he controlling all of this? He should be drifting in Tokyo, not doing this. It's just so bizarre. And a lot of the storylines for these characters just do not make any sense at all. And so they go to space, and then they decide that they can ram through it, because there's a previous conversation that Roman says, maybe I am invincible. I don't have any scars. There's nothing that hits me. Maybe I am invincible. And so he's like, let's test it. They literally drive their Pontiac through the satellite. I don't know. Like, it's crazy that the first movie is about racing and stealing products off of trucks, and then Brian was a cop. And now they're in space. I don't know. I really hope they don't do the Jurassic World rumors that I've heard. But this movie is just, it's so bizarre. It's so poorly written. The characters just make no sense. The storylines for the characters are ridiculous. They try to take the easiest route for everything within the film. You know, I was entertained. It was cool to see Han back, and the conflict between Jakob and Dom I thought was pretty good. You know, my wife asked me after we saw the movie, she said, what was your favorite part? And I just sat there and I was like thinking so hard. I was like, what did I like about F9? I really couldn't give her an answer right away. But sitting down and kind of just thinking about the film, the action scenes are big. The comedy is still there. The loyalty about family and everything works pretty well. There is a really touching moment at the end, which is probably one of my favorite scenes in this movie, is when they're all down at dinner and there's an empty seat. And Dom says, you know, we're missing one person. And Mia says he's on his way. It's like, oh my God, that's Brian. So you hear the car revving up, driving up the street. It's Brian's car, pulls into the driveway. I almost cried. I mean, I think Paul Walker's death still affects me. Like, he wasn't my favorite actor, but it's weird because I grew up watching like a lot of his movies, and for a split second, I thought he was still alive, and he was going to walk out of that car and then go have dinner with them. It was sad. I like that they're still acknowledging that Brian's there. He was taking care of Dom's son and their two kids, Mia and Brian's kids. And Mia was off helping out because Jakob is her brother too. And so I really, really like the ending, that they still acknowledge that Brian is there. I would be okay if the 11th movie did have CGI Brian. And because it's the last movie. And I feel like the last movie, they have to go all out. So they're going to have like The Rock and Deckard Shaw and Jakob and Owen Shaw and Vanessa Kirby in the film, and Queenie and Eva Mendes in the film, and those all the characters that were ever in the Fast and Furious franchise will be in the movie. I would be okay with a CGI Brian, maybe Cody Walker playing him. I would totally be okay with that if it was the last movie. But I really liked the ending of the film. I thought it was a very touching moment that he was still there. They were acknowledging that he's like part of the family, and they're like never gonna see him again. That's not gonna happen. So F9, lengthy film. I think if they would have cut out all of the Tokyo Drift characters, if they would have cut out this device, if they would have cut out Cipher, they would have cut out Han, I think it could have been a good film. If it was just about Jakob and Dom and their conflict and the personal touches to that, I think it would have been a good film. Maybe if Jakob was doing something to the family and them trying to protect each other, I think it could have been something completely good. But instead they added just way too much into it. It's just a jumbled mess. And I think it could have just gone a completely different route, and it would have been an entertaining film. But instead we had so much to kind of take in that not everything worked. So this is easily my least favorite Fast and Furious movie. Was I entertained? Yeah. Would I watch it again? Yeah. Gonna go see it tomorrow. And will I buy it? Yeah. Will I accept it as a Fast and Furious franchise? Yeah. It's just one of the franchise for me that I will watch over and over again, and never get bored with it. And you know, this has issues, but it still feels like a Fast and Furious franchise, and I still love it. Not good at all, but I still will watch it. I still will enjoy it. And so I'm gonna go ahead and give F9 The Fast Saga a C. Thank you guys for checking my review for F9 The Fast Saga, and pretty much just me rambling on about the movie and what I disliked about it. But stay tuned for a ranking video and a special video surrounding the Fast and Furious franchise. I'm excited to talk about that. So stay tuned for those videos. My name is Just Watches Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.